We're starting off our final year of covering Batman the Animated Series with the return of a character who wasn't featured enough on this show, that being the John Glover-voiced Riddler.
Greetings, little riddle tykes.
Riddler's reform sees Edward Nygma released from prison and put on parole for good behavior. Cashing in on his villainous persona, Nygma teams up with Charles Baxter, the president of Wacko Toy Corporation, to produce and sell puzzles to Gothamites. Batman doesn't buy Nygma's turn to the straight and narrow and starts to think the Riddler is dropping clues to new crimes in everything from commercials to subtle hints in their interactions. With Edward now in the good graces of Gotham, it's up to the Dark Knight to uncover what his old foe is really up to. This is a simple plot, and one we had seen a different version of in Season 1's Penguin classic, Birds of a Feather. A nemesis of the Caped Crusader has seemingly turned over a new leaf, but Batman is more than skeptical of the situation and keeps the pressure on them until they slip up. Alan Burnett, Paul Dini, and Randy Rogel's story is less rich in the character department than Chuck Menville and Bryn Stevens' Penguin episode, but the execution in Riddler's Reform works well with some vintage Batman action and a few very cinematic sequences.
And I'll be waiting.
Great moment there. Credit to director Dan Reba, Don Yang's animation, and the storyboard artists for the strong visuals. It was great to have John Glover back in the Riddler role. He was an underutilized presence in the series, a source of believable menace and sharp comedic timing, especially in this episode.
The last time you delivered one of these, it almost killed Commissioner Gordon.
What's your point?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to meet the great Batman.
He's here because he hasn't got a clue. Favorite toys? Not like that. You'll break it. Yes. Well,
These toys of yours are brilliant.
Where did you find him, CB? He's so adorable.
who? Me?
Oh, Mr. Riddler, can you tell me what these do?
Quite the riddle indeed. Another is this episode's title card. The title reads like we're getting multiple Riddlers, but it was just a spelling error, leaving out the apostrophe. Apparently, there's an interview out there with director Dan Reba where he stated they fixed this on subsequent re-airings, but on all the home releases I have and on HBO Max, the typo is intact. While this is the last and perhaps my least favorite of the BTAS Riddler trilogy, it still exemplifies why this version of the character was so definitive. Spoilers from here on out. Now, Riddler's Reform pretty much tells us from the beginning that Nygma's new crime-free life is not what it seems. They're not hiding that as a twist, but where Penguin's turn was genuine and tragically undone in Birds of a Feather, Riddler's obsession with outsmarting Batman takes center stage here, as his compulsion can't be contained. Bruce knows this and tells Nygma as much whenever he confronts him.
You and I both know that I'm going to put you away because you can't help yourself. You can't stop.
Riddler managed to get out of Arkham legally, fooling everyone from the doctors to the judge and more. He's living a well-off life with many advantages and even becomes a popular mascot in Gotham. But Bats is right, he just can't help himself. He has to be better than Batman.
There's only one person who's ever been able to challenge me. Batman. He's the only one worthy of the game.
After challenging the world's greatest detective one more time with hints hidden in his latest Wacko Toy commercial, Batman figures out where Riddler's next crime will take place and ends up at Gotham's Convention Center, where they're holding the International Toy Fair the next day. Riddler springs the trap on Bats and traps him inside with a bomb that explodes before we see Bruce get away. Thinking he's finally defeated his enemy once and for all, Nygma actually gives up his Riddler persona and wants to move on.
Truly, part of me has died tonight. You! I don't believe it.
Of course, Batman survived the blast and gets Nygma to confess his crimes through the same two-way radio Edward used to embarrass the Dark Knight earlier. Riddler is desperate to find out how Batman escaped his perfect plan, but Gotham's Guardian won't tell him, leading Nygma into hysterics all the way back to Arkham, where he screams for an answer.
Somebody tell me how he did it! I have to know!
Later, an injured Dick Grayson asks Bruce just how he was able to walk away from the explosion.
All the exits were locked, and I was out of time. There was only one thing to do. I jumped inside the safe.
A very Indiana Jones 4 way of surviving, but at least it wasn't a nuclear blast. Personally, I think it would have been great if Bruce never said how he got out of there. There's a storytelling benefit to leaving it a mystery that I think could have fit the character perfectly. Maybe leaving a clue at the wreckage as the last shot would have been enough. In all, Riddler's reform is a solid finish to the character's trilogy. As Paul Dini explained in the book Batman Animated, it was tough to come up with smart Riddler stories, which is why he wasn't featured as often as other well-known villains. While it would have been great to get a few more episodes, being 3 for 3 is a good way to go out. Nigma would show up again across the DCAU, but he was never really the focus of any more stories, and his retro design was, well, the less said about that, the better. For now, anyway. Stay tuned throughout the month, Batmaniacs, as we finish up the series and continue to honor the greatest Batman who ever lived. See you next time.